Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Have you ever thought about if all bank borrowers treated the same when it comes to credit risk? Not anymore. In this video, we'll explore how Indian banks are shifting from a one size fits all approach to smarter, risk based lending using internal credit rating systems. From Basel I to Basel II, and now towards the internal models that estimate the probability of default and loss given default, we'll break down how these systems work, why they vary across banks, and what can be done to improve them. So, if you are into credit risk, banking reforms, or preparing for interviews, this is a must watch. Let's get started. Internal credit rating practices of Indian banks. Basel II aims to make capital requirements more risk sensitive by encouraging banks to use internal rating models that estimate probability of default and loss given default. But in India, rating practices vary widely across banks, each with different systems, structures, and grading methods. This leads to inconsistent lending decisions. Let's explore the current scenario and actions needed to strengthen internal credit rating models in Indian banking. Basel I. One size doesn't fit all. The journey towards the global banking standards began in 1975 with the Basel Committee. Basel I, 1988, introduced the concept of capital adequacy to manage the credit risk, requiring banks to hold capital based on risk weighted assets (RWAs). In India, the RBI suggests weights from 0% to 125% based on asset type, with a minimum 9% capital requirement. But Basel I's one size fits all model falls short. It lacks sensitivity to the actual risk of different assets, leading to the need for more refined risk based approaches. Basel II, moving toward the smarter risk management. Basel II fixes the gaps of the Basel I by introducing a more risk sensitive framework, focusing on credit, market, and operational risk. It encourages banks to assess capital needs using the standardized approach, which is based on the external ratings, internal rating based approach, which is based on the internal risk models. However, India faces challenges. Borrowers shop for better ratings, and many bank borrowers remain unrated. So, the solution is shift to robust internal rating models that estimate the probability of default and loss given default, making the capital allocation smarter and safer. Internal rating models. The internal rating model of a bank captures all risk faced by an entity and it quantifies the risk scientifically. These models are built around the rating methodology, rating processes, control and data collection, IT systems, assignment of rating, rating transition matrix, probability of default, loss given default. According to the Basel norms BCBS 2004, internal rating systems should provide PD and LGD or recovery rates. Rating model use. Bank rating models rate borrowers based on interest and installment paying ability. Ratings assist in pricing, loan origination, risk monitoring. There is variation in rating systems across banks in terms of the architecture, usage, and rating process depth. So, is the borrower rated or the loan facility? A rating structure can have three dimensions: borrower rating, transaction or facility rating, or the combination of both. Why internal credit rating systems matter for banks? There is smarter lending decisions. It helps banks assess borrower risk before sanctioning the loans. There is risk based pricing. It enables the interest rates to reflect the borrower's credit worthiness. Capital allocation. It allocates capital efficiently based on the actual credit risk, PD and LGD. Why internal credit rating system matter for banks? Let's continue this topic. Early warning signals. Flags high risk accounts before they turn into defaults. Regulatory compliance. Supports Basel II or III, capital adequacy and risk norms. Portfolio quality monitoring. Tracks credit health across segments, corporate, SME, retail. Improved profitability, reduces bad loans and enhances return on assets. So, how many grades? Have you ever thought about it? A well functioning internal credit rating system should ideally have 7 to 9 rating grades for performing non default borrowers. This ensures meaningful risk differentiation within the loan portfolio. 1 to 2 grades for defaulted borrowers to capture the severity or stage of default. For example, the early default versus the full charge off. So, why 7 to 9 grades? It is because if there are too few grades, that leads to the poor risk separation, weak pricing, and capital allocation. But if there are too many grades, it leads to overcomplication and subjectivity in judgment. So, regulatory guidance like Basel 2 or 3 and global best practices often recommend 7 to 9 grades for active borrowers to balance the granularity and usability. Who assigns credit rating in a bank? In an internal credit rating system, ratings are typically assigned by the credit relationship managers. They collect the borrower data and initiate the rating process. They use the internal models and tools to assess the credit worthiness. This can also be done by the credit risk or risk management team. They reviews and validates the rating assigned by the frontline staff. They ensure the consistency and compliance with rating methodology. Credit rating committee in some banks. They approves final rating for large or sensitive exposures. This adds an extra layer of governance and objectivity. So, segregation of duties is a key. To avoid bias, loan sanctioning and rating assignment must be independent. This maintains the integrity in the credit process. Risk factors that are considered in the internal credit rating system. So, Indian banks typically assess both quantitative and qualitative risk factors when rating a borrower. The common risk factors across the banks are: first is the financial risk, the quantitative side, which diversifies across the profitability, liquidity ratios, leverage, cash flow adequacy. Under the profitability, we have some measures such as ROA, ROE, the return on assets, the return on equity, EBITDA margins, etc. Some liquidity ratios such as current ratio, quick ratio, some leverage measures such as debt to equity, interest coverage. There can be many more. Next is the business or the industry risk. So it contains the industry outlook and the cyclicality, competitive positions, the demand supply conditions, and the regulatory impact. Next is the management risk, which comes under the qualitative section. It, it is a promoter experience and track record, and there is the governance and transparency, and the strategic vision and decision making ability. Next is the security or collateral risk. The quality and type of collateral matters over here. Some coverage ratios such as the asset cover or the security margin needs to be calculated and to check whether there is legal enforceability. Next is the conduct of account. So under this we measure the repayment behavior, we observe the overdue trends, and we see if there are any past defaults or if there is any restructuring history. So the typical weight distribution, it can vary by bank. The risk factors are the financial risk, the business or the industry risk, management risk, collateral or security risk, conduct of account. So the weight allocation can vary by bank, but majorly the financial risk carries the more weightage and subsequent distributions varies across the different banks. So PSU banks often rely more on collateral and account conduct, while private banks emphasize financials and industry risk with more model driven scoring. How banks arrive at overall credit rating of borrowers. Banks use a structured scoring and aggregation process to convert individual risk factors into an overall credit rating. So let's discuss this step by step process. First is the data collection. So one needs to collect the data across different dimensions such as financials, management profile, industry info, repayment history, collateral, etc. Then scoring the individual risk factors. So each risk factor, for example the liquidity, profitability, industry risk, etc., is scored using the quantitative thresholds which are defined internally. For example, let's say ROA should be greater than 10% and this is assigned as 5 points. Qualitative assessment grids, for example promoter experience is can be high, medium or low. So all these benchmarks are decided internally and very carefully. Then the weight application is applied. Each score is multiplied by the pre-assigned weight based on factor importance. So by taking an example, let's say the financial risk comes out of a score of 4 out of 5. Business risk, let's say 3 out of 5, it is come out. And similarly the other risk factors as well. The weight allocation is defined, and once you multiplied all these scores by the weight and aggregate those amount, you will be getting a total score on a scale of 5. And here our example says that 3.4 is a total score that the credit rating is arrived based on the risk factors defined. Now the mapping of the scores is assigned to the rating grade. The final composite score is then mapped to a rating grade like AAA to DDD or internal grade 1 to 9. So different score ranges are defined, which are also discussed internally by sitting with the stakeholders and the business, meeting the business requirements. So different score ranges from 4 to 5. Let's say the management system says that we will assign a grade 1, say excellent grade, and similarly the grade 2, grade 3, grade 4 and grade 5 are being assigned basis the score that comes out from the final rating system. So credit ratings are not static. They must reflect the borrower's latest risk profile. Otherwise, one should check again where the mistake is, if the score range is not coming out just like that. So how frequently are credit ratings reviewed in banks? So there are different measures. Let's discuss first the annual review, which is the minimum standard. Most banks conduct a mandatory annual review for all rated borrowers based on the updated financials, industry trends, and the repayment behavior. Next is the interim or trigger based reviews. Banks also revise ratings in between annual reviews if any of the following occurs: deterioration in financials, delay or default in repayment, restructuring of loan or change in terms, adverse market or industry developments, change in collateral or security or limits. Next is the high risk accounts, which requires the more frequent monitoring. Accounts with weaker ratings or large exposures may be reviewed quarterly or even monthly in some banks. So the best practice is that there should be a robust internal rating system which combines periodic reviews with event driven triggers to maintain real time credit risk visibility. So are internal ratings mapped with external ratings? Have you ever thought about it? So the answer to this question is yes. Internal ratings are often mapped to external ratings, and especially in banks using the standardized approach under the Basel II or 3 framework. So why map internal ratings to external ratings? First, this is the benchmarking accuracy. The banks compare the internal models with CRAs like CRISIL's, ICRA, CARE or Moody's or S&P's ratings. They ensure the consistency and credibility in the rating outcomes. Next is the regulatory compliance. For capital adequacy standardized approach, RBI uses external ratings to assign risk weights. Mapping helps align internal grades to capital computation. Next is the model validation. This mapping outcomes helps in validating and calibrating the internal models over time. Risk culture and understanding. If the mapping is done, it aligns the internal teams with the market-wide credit risk language and one stay updated. So how to improve the quality of the internal rating systems? First is the increasing the granularity of rating grades. Use 7 to 9 risk grades to capture finer credit risk distinctions. Separate grades for performing and defaulting borrowers should be there. Next is strengthen the data quality and availability. For this, one needs to collect reliable financial, behavioral, and collateral data. Integrate with real-time account conduct systems. Next is incorporate both quantitative and qualitative factors. Blend hard numbers such as DSCR leverage with soft signals, for example, the promoter quality. Regular calibration and validation. It aligns ratings with actual default rates. Use backtesting and PD/LGD benchmarking. Next is use technology and automation, such as leverage the AI/ML tools for risk pattern detection, automate scoring models to reduce the subjectivity. Next is ensure the independent review and governance. Segregate the rating assignment from credit approval and implement the rating committees for high value exposures. Last but not the least, link ratings to business decisions as well. Here, integrate with pricing, limit setting, and risk based capital, and promote a culture of risk based lending. So, the overall conclusion is that the Indian banking sector is gradually shifting from the standardized capital assessment to risk sensitive internal rating models as encouraged under the Basel II or III framework. However, significant variation exists across banks in terms of the rating architecture, risk factor weightings, grade structures, and coverage across borrower types. The key insights are most banks rely on borrower level ratings with limited use of facility level ratings. Unrated borrowers and data quality gaps challenge effective credit risk assessment. On a few banks generate advanced metrics like PD, LGD, and transition matrices. Internal models are used more for corporate loans, while SMEs and retail remain undercovered. Rating frequency and validation mechanisms vary widely. Mapping with external ratings and regulatory alignment is partial and inconsistent. So, the final takeaway is to meet the global standards and strengthen the credit risk management, Indian banks must improve the model granularity, expand the borrower coverage, enhance data infrastructure, ensure independent governance, align the ratings with business and regulatory needs. A robust internal rating system is not just a compliance tool, it's a strategic asset for smarter lending, capital optimization, and early risk detection. So that's all for today. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights on credit risk and banking practices. See you in the next one. Thank you.